Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk about how great odd and unconventional lifts like Zerchers, hack deadlifts, and side bends are. Now you might be thinking, why should I care about those lifts? The only things that matter are squat, bench, and deadlift because powerlifting is the be all and end all of lifting, you dummy. And to that I would say, now listen here, you little sorry about that, but that's exactly what I want to get at, which is that there's more to lifting than just squat, bench, and deadlift, and that odd and unconventional lifts are great. Even if powerlifting is your main goal, adding in some odd lifts can help you get stronger and turn you into an absolute freak of nature. First things first, odd lifts are just stupid fun. Doing the same thing over and 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 over again can just get boring and very monotonous. If every week is just squats, bench, deadlift, squats, I'm not going to do it again, but you get the point. If it's just the same thing week after week, it's going to get very dry and become a chore. And yes, you have your secondary movements or your accessories, but they're usually very similar to the main lifts for most people, and they're just very small tweaks of the squat, bench, and deadlift. You have your paused squats, you have your paused deadlifts, your RDLs, your Larson press, your Spoto press, dumbbell bench press. They're still very similar, so they're still very boring. And most people have been doing these same kind of few lifts on rotation for years upon years. Now, don't get me wrong, specificity is great and it is needed. Strength is a skill after all, and you need to be efficient and proficient with the movements to express your best strength with them. But there is another component to strength: the raw force output capabilities of each muscle. And those can be trained in any way. As long as you're targeting that muscle, you're getting it bigger and stronger if you're stimulating it sufficiently. That aspect doesn't need to be so hyper specific. And doing the odd lifts will stimulate those muscles very well. And the little wins of learning how to crank a stupid behind the backsies, sometimes in chainmail if you're into that.
Come on. Up. Shit. Whoa!
Or just ripping a Zercher deadlift that feels like you're lifting up the weight of the earth in the crook of your elbows can be so motivating and make your training so much more fun. And these lifts aren't just circus acts. Like I said, they're going to stimulate those muscles. And on top of that, they're usually still pretty similar in getting you to use similar movement patterns to squat, bench, and deadlift. So you're also going to be training that movement pattern to an extent. You're not just completely forgetting about it and only working on the muscle. But aside from the carryover to the squat, bench, and deadlift, I don't even care about that right now. The fun that you're having with these odd and unconventional lifts is going to be your biggest driver of success and progression in the long term. Because when things get stale and boring, they become a chore. It becomes hard to get motivated and make the time to go to the gym. And when you do go, it becomes hard to go in and actually put in a good effort. All of a sudden, you find that you're just kind of going through the motions when you get there, not putting in your best effort. And then a few months pass by and you notice that you haven't made any progress on any lifts. And not only that, but the gym becomes more and more physically and mentally draining, even though you're doing the same amount of work. You leave the gym and instead of feeling energized, you feel drained. You feel like you just need to check out and go to sleep. It becomes another job, really. The bad part is that you're probably not getting paid to do it. And all of this can bleed over into the rest of your life. So when the gym's feeling like that, you're going to be more stressed and drained overall, and you won't have the same spark of life that you used to have. I know this seems a little bit ridiculous and exaggerated, but I have seen this before. People go to the gym and they just kind of do the same thing over and over again, and it just becomes more draining. That's why people need to take these big deloads and then they feel good after. But the problem is that that deload lasts for a week, they feel good for a few weeks after, and then it's just the same cycle again and again because they're still doing the same thing again and again. And they're not making that progress, so they're not enjoying it, and they're not looking forward to it, and then their effort and consistency is lacking, which then just feeds back into that cycle. But when you're having fun, all of that gets flipped. You look forward to going to the gym, and then when you show up, it's way easier to go in and give your best effort. So you're going to consistently show up more often, and you're going to consistently put in a better effort more often. Now, all of a sudden, the gym is the highlight of your day. Not only are you energized to get into the gym, but after the workout, instead of feeling drained, your mind is actually energized for you to do more things. It really is a game changer, and life does seem brighter when not every aspect of it is a chore that you have to get done. You finally have this space that you can enjoy and get away from life and escape this craziness that's happening right now and just have fun. Enjoy your life, make progress, and better yourself. And those are really just the short-term benefits. So this fun and enjoyment of it is going to keep you consistent for the long run. It's going to be easier to show up day after day, week after week, year after year, because ultimately we want to lift for life. We want to be freaks of nature when we're 80 years old. Training shouldn't be just something that you do to be jacked for 1 or 2 years and then never lift again. That is a very egocentric mindset, and it is not very fulfilling, and it doesn't really do much for you anyways. Training is something where you can consistently work on yourself and consistently improve on yourself and develop and evolve in different ways, and not just try to get some quick output. It's not about instant gratification at all. It's about the process, and that's where all the gains come from. And making it fun is going to make it easy to be consistent and actually get those results. So when you're having fun, you're actually going to be going in, putting in better effort and making meaningful contributions and putting in meaningful drops to your bucket of success that eventually one day when you look back on it, you'll notice how much strength you've gained, how much more jacked you are, and just overall how much better you are. So making training fun is very important because then you're going to be consistent. Anyways, enough of the fun rant. There is some nuance to it. So you can't just go in and have fun for the sake of having fun if you want to work on some goals. The things that you do for fun still need to produce meaningful results, because it's easy to go in and just do whatever and have fun. It doesn't necessarily need to relate to anything. The problem with that is that after a while, when you look back and you're trying to achieve that goal, you notice that you've made no progress. And that isn't fun, because we have to be honest here. Achieving your goals, having success, and actually bettering yourself is fun. Building up that self-esteem and self-efficacy is fun. Don't ignore that fact. Sometimes things aren't the most fun in the moment, but they're still pretty fun, and the outcome that you get and what it allows you to do is more fun than if you neglect them. And that really brings me into my next point of why I love odd lifts so much, because not only are they fun, but like I've already kind of said, they stimulate the muscles. So you're going to be getting stronger and you're going to be working towards your goals with them. And not only that, but they usually also challenge flexibility. And then what I think is one of the most underrated aspects of them is that they challenge your mind and get you to grow mentally resilient. So starting off with the strength aspect, for the odd lifts, you use your muscles and you use your muscles hard. And the odd lifts are very loadable. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but once you have the skill down, it's really easy to continue loading it, just like squat, bench, and deadlift. And that is kind of a little tangent here, why I think squat, bench, and deadlift is so popular and foundational, and why a whole sport is built around it, because there's very low barrier to entry on those movements, and everyone kind of knows how to squat, bench, and deadlift to some capacity. So since they're kind of seen as these foundational movements, everyone does them, and anything outside of them is usually seen as less important. But with this point for the odd lifts, I think that some more components and some more movements should be considered more foundational. Actually being able to round, extend, twist, and laterally bend your spine should be a little bit more foundational. Moving laterally should be a little bit more foundational. Getting into a lunge should be a little bit more foundational. A lot of these movements are known to people, but there's not sports built around them, so they're a lot less popular to be trained and pushed hard. And yes, these other movements, especially odd lifts, may have a little bit more complexity to them because they combine some things usually. And honestly, I really think they're only seen as complex because people are so hyper-focused and honed in on squat, bench, and deadlift. So their movement capabilities are actually very limited to just going up and down, forward and backwards, and hinging a little bit. So anything outside of these movements is difficult and kind of complex to them. But if you just give yourself 1 or 2 months to learn these movements, then boom, you have a skill that you can use for a lifetime. And this learning period doesn't even need to disrupt your training. It can just be tacked on top and really light. Maybe you take a couple sets from a couple exercises here and there so that you can convert them to these odd lifts. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not really changing your training all that much. You still are going to be doing your regular training all throughout, getting a lot stronger, and then just learning this skill on the side. It's not disruptive at all. And a lot of people kind of make that barrier up and just don't want to actually put in the work to learn the movement. So they already go into it with this preconceived idea that there's going to be this huge barrier and disruption to their training, when that is just not true. Moving on, these lifts also challenge you from a flexibility standpoint. So you're going to get more flexible, and that is pretty awesome. Now, flexibility is a little bit overhyped, and a lot of people will say that you need to be flexible to avoid injury, which just isn't really the case. There is some nuance to it. If you have enough flexibility to handle everything in your life and all of your training, then increasing your flexibility probably isn't going to do much for you in terms of injury prevention with those movements. But let's say that, every time you squat, you're kind of reaching your max range of motion, or maybe some work tasks that you have to do or daily tasks that you have to do challenge your flexibility. Those are going to get you to constantly be working at your capacity, which can now make that a little bit more injurious. So you're kind of maxing out your capacity and you're pushing your body to its limits a lot. If you gain some flexibility so that you're now working just under your capacity, that's where it might have a little bit of a protective effect. Again, it's not huge, but it is a piece of the puzzle and it could be helpful. And on the flip side of that, there's also a lot of people that say flexibility is absolutely not important at all and you don't need to worry about building it up. And I think that is equally disingenuous as saying that flexibility is the cure to pain. It's really reductionist and ignores all the nuances of kind of what I just stated, but some more that I'm going to get into here. Increasing your flexibility can also just give you more movement options in general and allow you to do more things. A great example is the odd lifts. If you don't have the flexibility in your back, hips, and hamstrings to bend forward and grab a Zercher deadlift off of the ground, then you're not going to be able to do Zercher deadlifts. Is that very important? Not unless you want to do Zercher deadlifts. But that does also mean that you have a lot more flexibility to do other things, and they're not going to be running into your capacity. And now you also have this option to do Zercher deadlifts, which can help you in many different ways. I have a good example on that coming up, so keep listening for that example. And really my point is that more movement options is better than less movement options. So you can do things in different ways. Let's say you have a repetitive task at work and you need to do it again and again. If you can do it in a few different ways, it allows you to rest different parts of your body and keeps you from getting overworked in just one area. So that those extra movement options are kind of protective and they just make your life less stressful. And kind of related to this point of movement options is that odd lifts usually get you to move your body in ways that are usually avoided. So they're going to get you to round your back. They're going to get you to bend sideways and twist and move laterally and do all these things in awkward positions, which all of that combined is going to build up more and more movement options so you can do more and more things. And an added bonus from having more movement options is that moving in these different ways is probably going to make you feel better if you constantly avoid it. Just getting some movement in every single direction usually is helpful and usually helps people feel better. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And now I want to bring up some personal examples of how more movement options is beneficial. How many more times can I say movement options? So the first example is that at my condo gym, there's a barbell and plates. That's awesome. Most condo gyms don't have that, but there is no rack. So you can't really do too much with the barbell other than some deadlifts and rows, maybe some curls. That's what most people think, at least. So when I'm doing my workouts, sometimes I'm pressed for time and I can't quite finish it all. And luckily I have this condo gym so I can just push some exercises to later and finish them at home. One exercise that I love to push till later is my Zercher lunges. So there's no rack here, so I can't set up the lunges out of the rack. What do? I just Zercher deadlift the bar off the ground, get into a lunge stance, and then lunge. So because I have these other movement options, boom.
Boom!
Now I can do a great exercise with very limited equipment and not have to worry about it. And the next example is one that's kind of spurred around injury and rehab. During the prep for my last powerlifting competition, I kind of strained both my lats and lower traps to the point where deadlifting with anything over 120 kilos was painful, either conventional or sumo. Now 120 is a very low weight for me and well below my working weights. Most people in this position would be unable to deadlift and they'd be thinking they're screwed, doing some other accessories, kind of thinking, it's all over, having the classic catastrophizing and spiraling that most powerlifters do. However, since I have built up these other movement options, I just did Zercher deadlifts. I did Zercher deadlifts for 2 weeks, and this was pretty close to the competition, so I was only a few weeks out. This is a key point in training and during prep that I had to drop regular conventional deadlifts and swap in Zercher deadlifts. This would cause most people to panic, but I know, hey, I'm still training this pretty similar movement pattern. I'm still pushing the muscles hard, and I was able to get in really good work. And then when I was able to add in my conventional deadlifts back, it was no problem. They were stronger or as strong as before, and they felt just as smooth as before. It had no impact on my prep because I had this other movement option that was really good. I was able to get stronger and keep practicing that pretty similar movement pattern. So to kind of sum up what I presented on odd and unconventional lifts so far, not only are you getting stronger, but you're also getting more flexible, increasing your movement options, and having fun, this seems like a big win and an obvious choice to add odd lifts to your program, to me already at least. And we haven't even gotten to what I think is the biggest point, which is building mental resilience. How do they build this? Well, they get you to do things that you thought were never possible. After seeing a Zercher deadlift for the first time, you might think, well, I'll never be able to do that. That's something that I definitely cannot do. And it might even be a little bit scary. Just the thought of getting into that position might make your back hurt. So you might have this fear around them. But once you've broken the movement down and found the entry point that is appropriate for you, and then you've built it up over time to be able to do it from the ground, and then you keep doing it again and again, getting heavier and heavier, just progressing it like anything else, then eventually you're not going to be afraid. And that fear is going to be replaced with a sense of empowerment. Because now you've taken something that you thought was impossible and that you couldn't do, and you proved yourself wrong. You proved yourself that you could problem solve, break it down, build it up, adapt, and eventually overcome. And that process right there is what a resilient mindset is. It's the ability to face that fear and discomfort, come up with a plan, work on it, adapt, and overcome. And this mindset bleeds into all of your other lifts. So even your squat, bench, and deadlift, now you're not going to be as anxious going for those heavy weights. Instead, you're going to feel ready and empowered, and you're going to attack those weights with the most energy that you've ever had and the most confidence that you ever had. And if you fail, it's fine. You come up with a plan, build up over time, and then overcome it eventually. This mindset keeps you going and keeps you growing. And not only does this mindset apply to strength, but it also applies to pain and injury. That concept of breaking things down, finding your entry point, and then building it up over time is what all of rehab is built on. And I've made a framework about this. It's the WMBP framework. I have a video on it and I have a downloadable PDF document. I'll link them both in the description. And for the PDF document, the site I use has to have a price field in it. Just put 0 in that. You don't have to pay anything. It's free. I don't want you to pay anything for it. And if you want to support me financially, then on the next page, there should be a tip section. You can financially support me there if you want to, and every single tip is greatly appreciated, and it goes to paying off my student loans so that maybe one day I don't have to rent. So thank you very much. And if you are unable to support financially, or you just don't want to, which is very valid and fair, then you don't have to tip. You can support in other ways by maybe liking this video or leaving a 5-star rating on that program if you found it helpful. No matter what you do, I'm very grateful for any support, and I thank you. You're awesome. Now back to the benefit of mindset. It extends even beyond just the gym and into your life. So that resilient mindset of facing a problem, breaking it down, finding your entry point, and then working on it and building up over time can be applied to literally every aspect of your life. Your relationships, self-improvement, your work, your own business, anything. All it takes is that understanding of you can adapt, you can work on yourself, and you can grow, and you are actually in control of more things than you think you are. Not all of these benefits need these odd or unconventional lifts, but I do think that they are just such a good, tangible example of them that it really helps put these into perspective, really helps you practice the skill and then be able to use them. So that resilient mind can be built in any way, but I think odd lifts are just such a great way to learn it fast and really build it up. So if you're ready to leave normal humanity behind and become an absolute unit, both physically and mentally, I think adding in the odd lifts is a phenomenal way to do that. And I suggest at least trying to put some into your program. Anyways, thank you for watching. Now go out there and make some gains.